I pulled the door open expecting a salesman. Instead, it was her. Well, not her, but the echo. A girl, no older than 18, standing there with eyes way too familiar. Same storm gray as the ones that once stared across a courtroom and said, "It's yours, even if you don't want it." She didn't even blink. "You're Nathan Pierce, right?" I kept my face blank. "Who's asking?" "My name's Lily. You have to pay my college tuition." I blinked. "No hello. No sorry to bother you. Just that." Like it was a court order handed down from God himself. My jaw tensed. "No way. What kind of nonsense is that?" She didn't flinch. Just squared her shoulders like a lawyer building her case. "My mom can't work anymore. She's in a wheelchair. She lost her memory years ago, but she remembers you. She says you're my dad." And just like that, time folded in on itself. I don't even remember what I said as I shut the door in her face. I needed a minute. Maybe 5. Maybe a lifetime. But I didn't get one. 10 minutes later, there she was again. Same girl, same stubborn expression, only now she had cargo. I saw the wheelchair first, then the woman slumped in it. She was thinner, paler. Her hair, once this proud mahogany cascade, had gone brittle and gray. Her mouth hung slightly open like the words got stuck somewhere behind her teeth. But the face? I'd have known it in a crowd of ghosts. Elaine, my ex-wife. The woman who had shattered everything. And now she was back, rolled up to my doorstep like a haunting in broad daylight. "This is my mom," the girl said. "She remembers you. She says you're my father." I didn't answer. I didn't argue. I didn't slam the door again, either. I just stared, because deep down, I'd already started to suspect. And if there's one thing I hate more than betrayal, it's being right about it. I did what I always do when the world tries to spin out from under me. I got methodical, clinical, ice cold. "Get in the car," I said. The girl looked wary. "Why?" "We're going to get a DNA test." She didn't say anything, just nodded. She thought she'd won. Thought I was folding. Thought my spine was made of nostalgia and guilt. But I wasn't doing this for her. I was doing it for me, because I'd spent 18 years with this poison in my chest, wondering if I'd walked away from a child or just a damn lie wrapped in a lullaby. The clinic was quiet. Sterile. The kind of place where people get answers they think they want. She gave the sample like she'd done this before. I gave mine like I was giving blood to a war I never signed up for. They told us it would take a couple of days. I told the girl, "You'll hear from me when I know the truth." Not a second before. She looked at me like she wanted to say something, maybe that I was cruel, maybe that she didn't understand, but she didn't speak. She just wheeled her mother out, her skinny hand on the handles, and I stood there in the parking lot watching my past disappear into the sun. 3 days later, the results came in. And wouldn't you know it? I was right again. 0% probability of paternity. Not even a smudge of shared blood. I stared at the paper for a long time. Not because I didn't believe it, but because it was the final proof that the woman in that chair had kept lying long after the damage was done. She'd raised a daughter to believe I was her father. Raised her to think the man she betrayed had some moral debt to settle with the ghost of a marriage that never should have survived a second date. I didn't pace. I didn't second-guess it. When I dialed that number, my hand didn't even tremble. I gave them everything. Names, dates, the results of the DNA test. I told them the girl had claimed I was her father, had come to my door making financial demands under that lie. I told them the mother, my ex-wife, was involved, even if she was wheeled in like a fragile, wilting daisy. What I didn't tell them, that I'd spent 18 years stewing in the wreckage she left behind. That the night I found out she was pregnant with someone else's child was the last time I believed in happy endings. The officer asked me, "Do you feel threatened?" I said, "No. I feel insulted. And I want it documented. Because that's how this kind of justice works. Quiet. Legal. Paper trail deep and bulletproof." They logged the incident, flagged it as potential fraud, and told me they'd send a detective for a follow-up. I said sure. I had nothing to hide. She did. That night, I sat on the porch with a glass of something strong and dark. I didn't drink often, but this wasn't drinking, this was a funeral. Not for Elaine, not for her daughter, but for the last flicker of pity I might have felt. Gone. Snuffed out with black ink on a white test result. I thought back to the day I left. She told me, calm as could be, "It's yours." Even smiled like she believed it. But I knew. From the moment she said it, I knew she was lying. There's a look people get when they're cornered, not panicked, not desperate. Polished. Practiced. That was her look. That was Elaine. Back then, she tried to guilt me into staying. You're running from your responsibility. I'd replied, no, I'm running from your fantasy. I don't play house with liars. And I didn't. I filed for divorce the next morning. Walked out with nothing but my pride and my passport, and even that felt heavy. 2 days after the police report, the knock came again, but this time it was a man in uniform. Detective Harrington, clean-shaven, conservative tie, clipboard in hand. He introduced himself, asked if I'd be willing to come down to the station to answer a few questions. Standard protocol, he said. I told him to give me 5 minutes. When I got there, they asked me to recount everything, start to finish. I did clear, calm, precise. I gave them the test results. I handed over the photo of the girl. I described Elaine, her condition, her memory loss, or lack thereof. Then Harrington leaned forward. Do you believe she really has amnesia? I didn't even blink. No. You think this was planned? I think Elaine always had a flair for performance. You put her on a stage, she'll cry on cue. You put her in a wheelchair? She'll win an Oscar. The detective didn't smile, but he made a note. They'd be looking into it. The thing is, I wasn't chasing revenge. Not anymore. That part of me died somewhere between the lies and the silence. What I wanted now is justice. Not fire, not fist, exposure. The truth, put up on a pedestal and lit from every angle. I wanted her lie to be seen. Not by me. I already knew it. I wanted her daughter to see it. I wanted that kid to know exactly who raised her. Not a victim. Not a saint. A woman who weaponized motherhood, leveraged guilt like currency, and then spun a story so well even her own child thought it was gospel. Let her explain that. Let her try to sell that fairy tale to the police, with cold facts biting at her ankles. Let the daughter see the wreckage she was born from, not my blood, not my problem, but still walking around in a borrowed truth. That's the kind of betrayal that needs no revenge. It devours itself. The last thing I told the detective before I left the station was this. If you find out she really forgot everything, I'll eat my words. He raised a brow. And if she didn't? I smiled, just a sliver. Then I guess the truth finally caught up to her. A week passed. No word from the detective. No follow-up calls. No knock on the door. Just quiet. That kind of quiet that crawls up your spine and makes you wonder who's planning what behind the curtains. And then she came back. Lily. Same steel in her eyes, same teenage conviction that the world owed her something. Only this time she looked tired. Hair pulled into a loose ponytail, backpack slung over one shoulder. No makeup, no practice pout. Just the raw version. The kind of look people wear when the story they were told doesn't match the one they're living in. You did a DNA test, she said. Not a question. She already knew. I didn't answer right away. Just motioned to the porch chair beside me. She hesitated, then sat. I'm not your father, I said finally. The test confirmed it. I assume your mother didn't mention that part. She doesn't remember, she said. She keeps telling me you're my dad. She believes it. I laughed, but it wasn't the kind you share over drinks. It was the kind that comes out when you're so done being the villain in someone else's bedtime story. Or maybe she's just a better liar than you gave her credit for. She looked away. She used to talk about you before the memory stuff got bad. Said you were stubborn. Said you walked away from her when she needed you most. She didn't need me, I said flatly. She needed a patsy. A signature on a birth certificate. A paycheck. And when I refused, she wrote me out of the script like I was never there. But you were. Not when it counted. The silence between us was thick. And for the first time, I saw it. Not anger. Not entitlement. Doubt. She was starting to question the version of her life she'd been handed. Can I ask something? She said. Even if it pisses you off? Try me. Why didn't you fight harder? If you thought she was lying, why not stay and prove it? My jaw tightened. And there it was, the question I'd asked myself in every low moment. The question you can only ask when you've never been betrayed at the molecular level. Because you don't fight fire with hugs, I said. You don't win against someone who's already decided the truth doesn't matter. You walk away before you burn. She nodded slowly, eyes flickering. She told me my dad abandoned me. She told you a lot of things. That night, I went into the attic. I hadn't touched the boxes in years. Legal documents. Old photos. The torn-up pieces of a life I once tried to build with someone who couldn't stop lighting matches. I found the letter. Not the kind you keep out of sentiment. The kind you keep as insurance. Elaine's handwriting, angry and fast, dated just 3 months after the divorce. I remember the night I got it, postmarked from some rented condo, scrawled with the usual venom. You'll regret this. One day, she'll come find you. And when she does, you'll see that blood doesn't matter. She'll believe what I tell her. It had felt like a threat back then. Now, it read like a prophecy. The next morning, I left the letter in an envelope on my porch. No stamp. No address. Just Lily's name in block letters. I don't know if she came back to get it, but I like to think she did. I like to think she sat with it, read it once, then again. I like to think something clicked, something deep and painful, like waking up from a dream and realizing none of it was ever yours. Because that's what her mother did. She built a dream on borrowed bricks and expected it not to crack. But lies don't age well. They rot. They collapse. And sometimes, they send their daughters to your doorstep 18 years later, asking for tuition money like the world still works in fantasy. A few days after I left that letter on the porch, I found the envelope gone. No note, no thanks, no argument, just gone. I didn't expect anything. Truth be told, I didn't even care if she read it. That letter wasn't a gift. It was a mirror. What she chose to do with it was her own damn business. But later that week, I got a voicemail. Soft voice, low, almost broken. This is Lily. I read what you left. I didn't know she wrote that. I didn't know she paused. I guess I didn't know anything. Not really. Click. That was it. No tears, no grand apology. Just a 17-second whisper from a kid who realized the pedestal her mother had stood on all her life was made of wet cardboard. I went about my week the same way I always do. Alone. Quiet. Routine like clockwork. My house is clean, my fridge stocked, and my phone silent, which is exactly how I like it. I built this life from the ground up after walking away from the one Elaine tried to trap me in. I didn't owe anyone a damn thing. But something about that voicemail, it stuck. Not because I wanted to help, but because I saw the reflection in the rearview mirror of me, once 18, piecing together who my father really was. That bitter cocktail of confusion, rage, and disbelief. It's not something you sip. You choke on it. Then came the knock again. Late evening. Sky bruised purple, sun fading. I opened the door to find Lily, standing there alone this time. No wheelchair. No dramatics. Just her, holding the letter like it weighed 20 pounds. I just want to know the truth, she said. I stepped aside and let her in. Not because I was feeling generous, but because I was done letting her mother be the only author of this story. We sat in the living room, a silent chasm between us. I leaned back in my chair, watching her hold that letter like it might burst into flames. Start talking, she said. All of it. From the beginning. I did. I told her about the early days. About Elaine's charm, her big dreams, the way she made me feel like the only man in the room, until she didn't. I told her how Elaine found out she was pregnant and rushed to make it sound like we were a team. But I could see the panic in her eyes, not love. The timeline didn't line up. Neither did the math. I told her how I asked for a test back then, and how Elaine screamed that I was heartless. That I didn't deserve to be a father if I questioned her word. I told her how I packed a bag that night and walked. And you never looked back? Lily asked, her voice small. Oh, I looked back, I said. But every time I did, the knife in my spine twisted a little deeper. She nodded, took it all in, then asked the question I didn't expect. What would you have done if I had been your kid? I didn't flinch. I'd have shown up every day. I'd have fought tooth and nail for custody. I'd have taught you how to spot lies before they wrap themselves around your neck like a scarf. She looked away, blinking too fast. And now, she asked. Now. I shrugged. Now, you're not my daughter. But you're someone's. And it's about time you started asking the right questions. Before she left, she stood in the doorway and said, I don't know who I am anymore. I told her the truth. That's the first honest thing you've said since you showed up here. That means you're on the right track. She nodded. Didn't smile. Didn't cry. Just left, letter still clutched in her hand like a lifeline fraying at both ends. A week after Lily left, the detective called again. Harrington. Always formal, but this time there was something different in his voice. Not curiosity. Suspicion. We paid a visit to your ex-wife, he said. Wanted to get her side of the story. Thought you'd want to know what we found. Let me guess, I said. She couldn't remember her own middle name, but somehow recalled every betrayal I supposedly committed in 2005. He didn't laugh. Just exhaled through his nose, slow and steady. She remembers a lot, Nathan. My grip on the phone tightened. I thought she had memory loss. That's the thing, he said. Her story's full of holes. Too many for it to be simple dementia. Doctors at the assisted living facility say she's selective. Selective. I let that word roll around in my mind like a bullet in the chamber. Turns out Elaine didn't have amnesia. She had amnesia when it was convenient. She remembered me, all right. Remembered our wedding song. Remembered what I did for a living. Even remembered the color of the sweater I was wearing the day she dropped the pregnancy bomb. But ask her about the father of her child? Oh, I think it was Nathan. Yes, it must have been him. Only now, faced with a DNA test and a police report, her tune was starting to change. She'd started backpedaling. Started asking about statutes of limitations and financial misunderstandings. She even claimed she thought the test result was fake. Forgery, she said. You'd think a woman who forgot everything wouldn't have such specific defenses locked and loaded. That night, I didn't sleep. Not out of anger. Not even heartbreak. I'd done my mourning years ago. What kept me awake was strategy. Because if Elaine was faking her memory loss, if she had coached Lily into tracking me down, then we weren't dealing with just a woman clinging to the past. We were dealing with a con artist, one with 18 years of practice. And you know what the worst part was? She almost got me. She knew how I'd react. Knew I wouldn't be able to ignore a girl at my doorstep who looked me in the eye and said, "Dad." She bet on me still having that last sliver of guilt tucked somewhere behind the ribs. She counted on that. She always did. I dug through old files. Pulled everything, old emails, texts, even the typed copy of our divorce proceedings. The digital footprint of our split was buried deep, but it was still there. I cross-referenced dates. Looked at the timeline between when she told me she was pregnant and when she gave birth. The math didn't just not add up. It screamed. She was nearly 2 months further along than she'd told me. I remember now how she started showing early, how the doctor whispered about how far along she might actually be. She'd lied about the conception date. Back then I didn't have the heart or the nerve to call her bluff. Now I had nothing but nerve. I made another call. Not to the detective this time. To a lawyer. And not just any lawyer. My cousin Travis. Divorce attorney. Pitbull in a tie. Tell me you've got something mean and legal for a woman who just weaponized her daughter to squeeze money out of her ex. He chuckled, but not the funny kind. The kind that says I've seen worse and made him cry in court. Lying about paternity and coercing under false pretenses? Buddy, we can file a suit so fast her wheelchair'll get whiplash. That's when I knew. I wasn't just done. I was about to start the second half of this game. Only this time, I wasn't playing defense. Travis met me at this dingy cafe downtown, the kind of place where the coffee tastes like burnt ambition and the booths have more secrets than a priest's confessional. We didn't need a nice table. We needed privacy. I slid the file across to him, DNA results, copies of texts from Lily, a printed-out version of Elaine's medical notes from the assisted living home, and the cherry on top, that handwritten letter from 18 years ago. Her threat. Her prophecy. He leafed through it like a priest scanning a list of sins, eyebrows rising slightly. You weren't kidding, he muttered. This is a fraud case wrapped in a custody ghost story. She faked a memory condition, I said. Coached her daughter. Lied about paternity. And then tried to emotionally blackmail me for college tuition. And made it all sound like a touching reunion. He looked up. Classic manipulation with a side of hallmark. He leaned back, tapping the folder. We can file a civil suit. Emotional distress. Attempted fraud. Depending on how this pans out, possibly defamation. I don't care about the money, I said. I want it on record. I want her name tied to the lie she built. He gave a slow nod. So you don't want revenge? No, I said. I want closure, with footnotes and a paper trail. The case was billed in less than a week. Travis filed the complaint. Subpoenaed her medical records. Pulled communication logs between her and Lily. Called in a forensic handwriting analyst to verify that letter she wrote. Solidified the foundation so clean, not even Elaine could charm her way out of it. And then, we sent it certified. Straight to her lawyer, because of course Elaine had one. A new name on the envelope, but I recognized the style, polished, smug, just like her old crowd. They'd all scattered when the truth came out, but apparently some roaches still stick to the shadows. 3 days later, her lawyer called Travis. And that's when the real game began. She wants to settle quietly, Travis said, voice smug like he'd already lit the victory cigar. No court, no press, no admission of guilt, but she'll sign a statement acknowledging she misrepresented paternity. I let that hang for a second. She'll admit it? Privately, yes. And she'll agree to never contact you again, or have Lily do it on her behalf. I exhaled. It wasn't dramatic. No fireworks. No TV courtroom drama. Just a legal document on clean white paper stating, in black and white, that Elaine lied. But here's the twist that made it all worth it. Lily? She found out. Because even when you bury a lie in legal language and non-disclosure clauses, the truth has a way of leaking, especially when your daughter is already doubting everything she's ever been told. Apparently, she found the papers in a drawer, saw the line that read, "Acknowledges Mr. Pierce is not the biological father and accepts sole responsibility for misrepresentation of parentage."